if you need your house sold quickly, like we need to be the best deal on the block, because if everyone is looking at all the single stories in your neighborhood, then they need to say, okay, out of all these homes, this one is going to be the better value.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining us. Shaune Corbett with Real Estate Success DFW. And today we've got Lisa Mann. How are you, Lisa?
Good. How are you?
Good. Lisa and I connected a couple of years ago from some other different events, and we've stayed in touch. And I've got a group where I help agents and I teach them and I train them. And she offered to actually teach one of my classes. And she is in Houston and I'm in Dallas, Fort Worth. So I was talking to her. I said, Lisa, you've done a lot of production. Maybe you'd be a really good opportunity for you to do a podcast with me. And that's kind of how this was born. Does that sound pretty close?
Yep. There you hit the nail on the head.
So Lisa is particularly special in the sense that she hasn't actively sold real estate even that long. She's at roughly about 5 years active full time, and she's got some experience prior. So she was able to get in, jump in, get rolling at 2020. But she's almost got 200 transactions in 5 years. I don't know very many agents that can start in 5 years and get up there, but she's got a real big focus on what she's doing and how she's going to do it. And she's going to share some of that with us today. So I'm really excited to take some of it. And I'm going to be making some notes too. I want to hear how you address the elephant in the room with people trying to sell homes and they price them too high. So that's something we're going to talk about. Where I always like to start is, and you've told me offline kind of where you got started in this space. And I always tease everyone that most of us don't go to high school and then to college and then all of a sudden say, you know what? I want to be a real estate agent when I grow up. Usually there's somehow we meander and land on it because
Yeah.
it fits something else and it just works out. I think you can probably attribute to that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about where you started and where you come from, and then how you got into real estate?
So, wow. Okay. So how I got into real estate, I was kind of forced into it. Okay. And what I mean by that was, I used to do back in the day, I used to do corporate security, loved it and had a really good career at that. The problem was that I had to transfer, I was transferring like states, like almost every 2 years. And I was a single mom and had a small child, small daughter, and it just became cumbersome for me to have a stable home for my daughter, and it became an issue with my ex-husband, who happened to be an attorney. And so I had to kind of take a look at my career and my family structure and say, what is going to be in the best interest of my daughter. And so it was kind of just a thought to say, hey, I'll let me try my hand at real estate, and I can work from home, I can be there for my daughter, and I'm not going to have to move as much. So that's kind of how I happened into real estate.
Okay. And I know you were working for a mortgage broker, and you have a mortgage broker license. Do you still have an active mortgage broker license?
I do. That was
Okay.
the hardest thing I ever did in my entire life, was to pass that test. Like, I thought I was going to have a heart attack when I finished that test, because I had no idea if I passed it or not. And so, yeah, so I've had my mortgage broker license as probably as long as I've had my real estate broker license, and I took it, and I don't do much with it. I still have it active. I actually have my license with Neighbors Bank right now, so I can do basically loans anywhere. So I do refis and things of that nature. I do loans for my clients whenever they need it, but it's not my primary wheelhouse.
Yeah. I talk about, people that have both. I generally find that most don't have success with both if they got to choose one.
Exactly.
It's rarely that you just land on a perfect opportunity where everything works out. You can clearly do both, and it's in everyone's best interest. It's hard to find those specific situations. So most, I tell them stop chasing both. Just pick one and
Yep.
become really good at it, and then the other, make it a referral opportunity. You have the license, you can get paid on referrals. Just make it a referral and just let it play out that way. It'll more than cover the cost of keeping it. But I always kind of recommend that. So I think that's clever that you got both. And I wish sometimes they might make the test even harder because I think we have too many loan officers and we have too many agents sometimes.
Yeah, that test is pretty hard. Especially the broker one. And with that one, if you fail it X number of times and you're out of business for a period of months, or at least that's the way it was when I tested. So I'm like, I'm never going to get rid of that license, but it's also beneficial because so I'm pretty lucky in the fact that with my, mortgage broker license, there's not much I have to do with it because I just kind of generate the lead, get the ball rolling, and then I have a team on that side because it's a bank. I can just pass it on to them and then just, touch base with them. So, but I love having the education of it because I feel like it just makes me that much stronger and helping my clients navigate, my real estate clients navigate through the process.
I think you're doing a disservice to clients if you can't pre-qualify them in a sense where you're having a
Right.
conversation as an agent. Most agents just throw it to the lender. Hey, call them. They'll do all the work. It's okay to have an intelligent conversation. What's your credit score? What's our income? What kind of debt are we dealing with? What kind of payments are you making? Let's look at DTI. And I know that goes way over most agents' heads. They're like, I got a lender, they take care of all that. We're not quoting them a loan and interest rate,
Right.
but we can at least save us some time and educate them in the process of what we need to address in order to be able to move forward. And then we put you in front of a lender and we're ready to rock and roll. I mean, I don't think it takes that much education to do that. I think it's a better benefit in order, for our clients. So you're going way above and beyond, way more than most agents need to know. There's only about two or three core things they need to know to even do it. It's not rocket science. So anyway, I'm glad you pointed that out. I think that's a really good value.
Well, and to piggyback on that also, because here's the thing, I'm I like to evolve and change constantly. Okay. And so I have my operations manager is amazing. His name is Isaac. And I always tell people you need to get an Isaac because he's going to save your life. But, simple things, when we're talking about kind of pre-qualifying those clients, because when you think about it, initially when lenders pre-qualify someone or they're doing the pre-qualification, they're just looking at maybe the surface, pulling their credit, and they're going off the information that that the buyer gives them. But they don't at that point they're not really digging in too deep. Had a couple of surprises. Like I've started asking people like, are your taxes up to date? It's the worst thing in the world to get someone under contract and then you're struggling to keep the deal together because they haven't filed their taxes in 3 years.
Yeah. And
Um,
that's not an overnight thing either.
it's not. And then if they have to make payments, then you might have other issues if that, kind of increases their debt to income. So other simple things like, is there a spouse involved here? I mean, I had a guy the day of closing, we're sitting at the closing table and the title company rep puts the paperwork in front of them and says, okay, I need you to check this box, single, married, whatever. And he's kind of just sitting there looking at it. And I'm like, what's going on here? Well, come to find out that he put on his application for the loan that he was single, but they were separated. And so we were not able to close that
Yeah.
day. Luckily, his ex-wife was a really nice person, or soon to be ex-wife. And, we had to put her on the loan and backtrack. We ended up closing a week later, but buyers don't know what they don't know. And, we're the ones that are in these processes every day. So, Isaac and I have, we have checklists that we send to people throughout and then we go through as they go throughout the process. So, and we cover it with them. But, one of the checklist is, okay, you've signed your buyer's rep agreement. This is what we're going to do next. This is what you can expect, and we try to do things as proactively as possible to eliminate, those surprises after we get under contract. And also not to waste our time showing someone a house when they're not even ready to be looking at houses.
Sure. And it's really valuable to be able to get ahead of a lot of those things. And as a note out there, don't sell houses to people that are getting divorced. I mean, I'm glad that she's a nice person. Hey, just put me on the house, no big deal.
Yeah.
That's not the way it normally goes. And
Yep.
you need to be, my lender won't even touch someone in separation or divorce or
Yep.
divorcing. He won't. I mean,
Yep.
just nobody wins. And unless their spouse really doesn't care, which is unusual, I'm glad you're able to work out that. So I do want to pivot a little bit. You've sold a lot of homes in a short amount of time, and your specialty, the way I understand you, is really getting into the sell side, the listing side, and able to accumulate listings, right? If we all remember back to our original Bible in the business, Millionaire Agent, Gary Keller talked about, to grow your business, you need listings more than anything else. And there's other valuable points that he offered. So listings compound your business because you get multiple transactions typically out of it, and they're way easier to manage and you spend less time per hour working on them. So
Mhm.
how does the agent today in a market like this get listings? What's some general thoughts that you have? Not the price, nothing, and let's just talk about the listing part. What's some general thoughts that you have, or how do you approach that?
So I do have a referral with that, if they need someone to take a listing or whatever, they're really good about, sending me referrals. But, here's the thing, you can get the referral, but you still have to lock it down. And then because I've, been, doing this for, let's just call it 5 years, full time, I've got my circle of influence coming back saying, okay, I need to sell now. I want to upgrade my house or whatever. I'm moving out of state. So those are kind of, coming back to me now. But the one thing that I would say is I like to use what I call the Jerry Maguire strategy when I work with my clients. It's one of my favorite movies, which is I want my clients to feel like they are my only client ever, even though they're not. And so I kind of feel like because I've always had that mentality of really high expectations when it comes to working with my clients, that they're coming back to me and they're also referring me, to their friends and family. Like I had one client, I sold him a house. Then he purchased a home. Then we sold the house that he moved out of. And then he referred his mother-in-law to me, so we sold the house that she was living in and bought her another house. So one client, I generated 4 transactions.
Okay. Referrals are incredibly powerful, right? You don't generally have to convince or tell them who you are. Usually the referring partner takes care of that. You
Yeah.
mentioned listing referrals. Are you specifically talking Sphere, or do you have other ways that you create listing referrals? Like, are you doing it on social media, Facebook groups, or within the network of the brokerage you work at? How are you getting listing referrals?
Like I said, I have a lender that I work with
Oh,
that,
that's what you said. It cut out about that time you were saying. So your
yeah,
lender actually brings you
yes,
houses on people they're pre-qualifying, they need to sell.
yep.
Wow, that's nice. That's really valuable.
My insurance guy to do that, but and my inspector, but I mean, and I've had a couple of referrals from some inspectors that are on my list that my clients love to work with, and I've had a couple of deals through actually an inspector as well.
Yeah, inspectors are hard because they're typically reactive, right? They're not proactive. If they're not marketing, my inspector partner happens to be someone very reactive. He doesn't advertise or anything.
Yeah.
And I've given him probably 200 inspections. But anyway, I want to point out something though. We talked about lenders. Oh, insurance. So think about this. This is a really good value add for anyone out there with an insurance partner. And most agents don't have an insurance partner. They don't go
Yep.
past lender or title. They usually stop there. But insurance is really, really good because they can partner and sponsor things for you.
Yep.
And it just quote on the insurance for every house they're going under contract. It's a free value add to your buyer. They may have their own insurance guy. Great. I'm also going to help and see if I can help that one be better. Or
Yep.
maybe you go with my guy. But insurance people should be following up with their clients annually, and they have a checklist. Have you bought any houses? Are you selling any houses? These are really good value adds that insurance partners should be doing. And those are instant conversations that they can have and say, well, great. Let me have Lisa reach out to you, and then let's go ahead and start the process of doing that. That's a really good value add there.
Yeah, and so like so I do a monthly newsletter and everybody gets that newsletter regardless if I've closed a transaction with them or not. Any person that I touch that's a potential down the road, even if they're saying, okay, we're not buying right now ever, I still put them in there. And as long as they look at that newsletter, I love it. So we are actually in our next newsletter that's coming up, which Isaac, I think we'll post in the next couple of days or so. We're actually doing a gift card giveaway. We're going to do multiple denominations of 500, 250, $125. So people in the email are going to respond to that. But my preferred title company, which I'm doing a joint venture with, has donated money for the gift cards, and so has my insurance rep as well.
Sure. Yeah.
I was between the three of us, we were able to offer more prizes, so that we could, touch more people.
No, I love that. So talk briefly, just briefly, because we didn't talk about this offline. Your
Yeah.
newsletter, what do you use to create it? And you send it out to your primary sphere, I assume, because everyone gets stuck here. I got stuck for 6 months and never sent out a newsletter when I had everything set up ready to go. I had all my emails, I had my primary ready to go, and I didn't
Yeah.
do it because I was looking for perfection. So
Yeah.
talk briefly about what do you use for newsletters and what do you see as maybe traction on it? Do you have a pretty good open rate with it? Do you have any other statistics with it?
So this is fairly new for us. We've only been doing it for about 4 months, and this is kind of I'm happy to say I don't know much about it because this is an Isaac thing. So I basically what I do is that we look at the final proof and then we kind of tweak things of how we want to do them. But we use a newsletter to promote our listings on there. I also promote my neighbors bank, which is if they want to come to me for refis or whatever, I do that. We obviously put stats on there, market stats on there for them. I'm a big recipe person. So, we put a recipe in there. They can click on the recipe, go see the recipe. And it just depends on, what the status is. So, I just listed a property this week for $3.2 million. So, and that actually, by the way, I'm going to talk about that a little bit. Not that listing, listing. And if there's a message that someone can take away from this today, I want to tell you a couple of quick stories. I had a client one time that came to me and they were pre-approved for, I think $175,000 or no, I think it was 75,000. Okay. Back in 2021-ish or something. And so I get on the phone and I'm talking to this client because I think a lot of times, especially when we're busy, you see that low loan amount and you're thinking, I can't do anything with this. Like, what am I going to do with this? Like, there's not going to be anything of quality available for this client. But I got on the phone, I talked to the client, and he said, well, I'm in school right now, and but I'm going to be graduating soon. And I said, okay. I was like, well, where are you going to school? What's your degree in? He said, I'm working on my master's and I go to Rice University. I'm like, okay. So when are you graduating? He's like, I'm going to graduate sometime this year, but I'm going to start looking for a job. Fast forward a couple of months later, he's like, hey, I've got a job. They're going to let me start before I finish my degree. And I have my offer letter and I'm ready to go. Well, I ended up closing him for $744,000 property. So I would tell everybody, don't dismiss that client. Like, find out, are you getting a promotion? Are you, do you have some debt that's going to be paid off? I mean, we really need to give thoughtful consultations with our clients and kind of do that digging to see what can we do with them. Because if I would have just dismissed that client, then somebody else would have sold him that property. But it was me. And, I've done a lot of business with him since then. So that was great. But my 3.2 million came to me because I had a client who was a veteran and helped him purchase a home for him and his wife out in Cyprus. And then they had a little townhome off of Westheimer that they wanted to sell. So I helped him sell that. And then one day we were just kind of looking at a property and I was like, oh, this is going to be your next property. It was 2 or 3 million. I forget what it was. And he said, oh, I know who can buy that. And I'm like, really? Who is that? So he connected me with someone else. And that person, he never ended up buying anything at that time. But fast forward to this year, a property came up and I'm like, oh, I wonder if he would like it. And I sent it to him. I was like, hey, this would be a great property for you. And then he messaged me back and he's like, hey, by the way, I want to list my house in Memorial. I'm like, fantastic, let's do it. So we listed that house for 3.2 million this week.
Oh, fantastic. Staying in front of them, remembering them, connecting things that you know about them. Those will generate conversations.
Yep.
And I love that people forget that if whoever they connect you with, hey, I've got someone that might buy my house, they're never going to buy the house. The chances of there's nothing is so slim, but it's creating those new relationships and staying in front of them. I mean, I just had one. I've been for 2.5 years. I've been looking for a house for them. and they're right about 2.5 to 3 million. And I've sent him 100 homes that fit within that criteria. We still haven't found anything, but I still think about them every couple weeks. I dig through everywhere and see if I got anything. But, and I know they appreciate that I stay consistent. I stay in front of them. It'll pay off one day.
Yep.
I want to talk about listings.
Mhm.
One of the things that we struggle in this market is the market value proposition, and what sellers all look back 2 and 3 years. They have this ridiculous estimation of what they think their house is going to sell, and most of them aren't going to want to sit on the market for 6 months, but they want the high price and they don't want to sit. So how do we have these conversations with them to really get realistic about getting the most money for their house and not have them list well above where it's ever going to sell? What's your advice?
So I'm kind of lucky in that aspect because I've got, we've got some transactions going, and I always have that conversation with my clients because I I don't like to turn down business. There's been a couple of times I've like, this is really not going to be a good fit. It's not going to work. It's just going to be a disaster in the end, and I'm going to save myself the heartache and the frustration for the client. And I've had to actually say no. But I just point out to clients, like I have a client that is kind of on the fence. He signed a listing agreement and he's like, no, I want to wait. And then he's been talking to a bunch of other people who are filling his head with some misinformation. Okay. And one of the things that he pointed out to me was, well, there's several homes in my neighborhood and they're not selling. Okay. And I said, okay, let's take a look at the homes in your neighborhood. And I said, I can tell you exactly why these homes are not selling and why they've been on the market, because all these homes are overpriced. Um, I typically will sit down with the clients and say, look, if you want to be at this price, and if it's within a range, I will take it. But then in my listing agreement, I'm going to say, okay, if it's not, we're not getting activity in 2 to 3 weeks, we're going to sit down and have another conversation about where we are in the market, and let's look at the comps again and adjust accordingly. Okay. And I get them to commit to that. And then we put that in our listing agreement. But, the other strategy that we're using as well is basically that, not only am I looking at what's been sold, I'm also looking at what's active on the market. Because I'm telling them, like, look, if you need your house sold quickly, like, we need to be the best deal on the block. Because if everyone is looking at all the single stories in your neighborhood, then they need to say, okay, out of all these homes, this one is going to be the better value. And I always tell them, like, I would prefer that I'm sitting down with you and you're deciding to turn down offers than having to call you on a weekly basis and say, sorry, we still don't have any showings, let's drop the price.
Yeah. Yeah, you can always turn down offers,
Yeah.
but when you have nothing to work from, then you can't even negotiate. I got an offer on one of my listings that was way too low, but I said, you know what? I'm not the one selling the house. It's not on me to
Yeah.
make the decision. So I put it in front of them, and they don't have any extra cash. But then they started digging and they realized we've got a 401k that can cover the shortage because we've got to move.
Yeah.
So there are ways that people will resolve the issue for you when it comes to it. And if they've got to move bad enough, then we made a counter and now we're kind of working through it. But we could have just said, no, we're not interested. You got to work with what you have. One of the things that you've spent a lot of time in one of your if you had a niche, I think do you feel like military has been your niche market because you just do so much? And Lisa, you never been in the military. Sometimes things fall in your lap, like getting a real estate broker license.
Yeah.
Things just kind of play out that way. So you are working with a lot of military veterans because of your husband's job, and you'll get connected with a lot of people in
Right.
that space. What do you have general advice with working with military? Because they're kind of different, right? You got VA loans, you've got a certain expectation of what they're looking for. Everything's it's a different kind of deal. So what would you advise on that?
Well, the one thing that I will tell you is, for me personally, VA loans are the best loans, the fastest, easiest loans to do. Okay. The hard part for me when it comes to VA loans is I feel like I have to educate a lot of real estate agents because they have misconceptions about them, but they are super easy. Um, so I really do love working with that clientele. I love working, with them because here's the thing, for me, for the most part, when you're working with personality, that person that's been in the military, like they're very structured. they're very on task, on point. So if you say, hey, I need you to do this, like it gets done for the most part. So for me, I love working with that personality because I just kind of have that similar, very, very that, this is how we're going to progress. This is how we're going to move forward. So I really do love working with that clientele. Now, the other thing that I will tell you is, you have to be like any client, you have to kind of be in tune with your clients as well. Because I do have some older clients, that served in Vietnam, and with people serving in the military sometimes comes issues, that they have service connected disabilities, and you have to be super aware of, the people that you're working with and listen to them very closely in terms of, what their needs are and what they're trying to accomplish in the home buying process.
Yeah, I think those are important things and understanding your audience and who they are. And I think we all should have a niche, some type of niche. It doesn't mean you're defined by that. Lisa, you probably have sold plenty of non-VA loans and
Yeah.
plenty of but that doesn't mean it excludes you from that. But if you can find a space that really connects with you and you're able to understand their needs, understand who they are, they're your, what do we call it, our avatar, which is your defined person that fits really well with the way you operate. You probably never thought you would end up with military as a primary niche, market opportunity. I haven't sold very many to the military. I think a lot like the way they are and structured, but I've always worked my sphere, and the sphere has taken me all kinds of directions, which has not allowed me to niche really well outside of just working sphere. So there's definitely something to say when you can niche because you can immediately talk their language. You also speak
Yeah.
Spanish, right?
I try not to pigeonhole myself into any one. So for instance, like I told you, I don't turn down business. So what I look at in terms of my client is when I look at them, I'm like, what I look at is, can I get them to the closing table? It's my criteria for my clients. So I'm not, the type of person where I'm going to say, well, I only take people if they're buying over 500,000, or I only take people if they're in this area. So I leave myself wide open. I mean, I'm located in Cyprus, so I go an hour out in every direction. But for the most part, like if I look at that client and I feel like I can get them to the closing table eventually, like I'm gonna do my best to work with that client and help them obtain that goal.
Yeah, I love it, Lisa. You've been very open. I appreciate you being candid and sharing with us. You've given a lot of good insights on listings and how to niche, and how to really promote your business. I love all of that. You didn't offer anything to really specifically promote, but I know you've offered to come and teach a class at my group up here in Dallas. So that may be something other people could use some benefits, maybe in the listing space, or or building a team and start adding people. You're at that space. You did almost all of your transactions by yourself, and now you're like, I don't want to do that anymore. I need some help. I need to start leveraging and scaling. So you've
Yeah.
added people to help you. And I think that's a really good lesson for all of us. And a lot of agents are at your space, right? They've sold even 20, 30 houses. At that point
Yeah.
in a year, you need to look at scaling, adding some help.
You do, because if you don't, you're going to be doing a disservice to your clients. There's no way that one person can keep up that type of volume and give the level of service that our clients deserve.
For sure. And we'll post all your links. You're on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. We'll post all the links as well in the YouTube video when we do go live with that. And I think that covers all the things I wanted to discuss with you. So if you have any last minute words you want to share.
Yeah, I do. One thing that for 2025, I just got my certification for short sales. I've done short sales in the past. I did one this year, earlier in the year, got that one closed, but kind of looking at the market and kind of seeing what's kind of going on, I decided to kind of just go back to class and refresh myself on that. So I have about 3 short sale listings right now. 2 of them on the market, 1 of them coming up. So I kind of saw that in my future. And, one of the things that I do is I'm really big on education. Anytime I have, downtime or whatever, or if I see a class or a certification, like I really need to dig into that, I do constantly take education. And I would just tell, like, I have a brand new agent that just started with me. And I told her, I was like, hey, get as much education as you can right now, because when you get busy, you're going to be trying to squeeze that in.
It's good to do it when it's slower for sure. I think that's great
Yeah.
advice. As a note to short sale, the market is getting ripe to start having them come back. And I know it's shocking. We
Yeah.
think there's so much equity in all the homes. The problem is when we had forbearances during COVID and they weren't making mortgage payments, the equity gave them 2 or 3 years. But now the market is not savvy or growing fast enough, and they're eating their own equity as they stay there. So a lot of them don't even have the ability to pay back the loan. So short
Yep.
sales are going to start coming back, and foreclosures. I've seen predictions second quarter. We may start seeing those actually start ticking in a direction that affects all of us, which is is going to be something that we need to think about. How do we get ahead of that?
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you, Lisa. And thank you for all of you that are watching Real Estate Success DFW. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe. I'll continue to bring excellent interviews just like we had today with Lisa Mann. And I always encourage you guys to have a high performance week. And until next time, thank you. That wraps up another episode of Real Estate Success DFW. I hope you're leaving with new insights that push your real estate career forward. If you enjoyed the show, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with fellow agents who's ready to succeed. And if you're interested in working together or have any questions, I'd love to hear from you. Reach out to me directly. My personal phone is 214-228-0383. Let's connect and make real estate success happen together. Until next time, keep pushing forward. I'm Shaune Corbett, and this is the Real Estate Success DFW. Have a high performance week.